Greetings! Ashen, the comic book hunter here for another live stream. Hopefully everything has actually gone off without a hitch this time. Let me go ahead and take my reading spectacles off. So, it is a pleasure to be here, and we have a lot of good things to talk about today. If you are new to my live stream, well, what I do is I hunt down comic books. I discuss the comics I bought from the last week in my first session. I show you some artwork from it and tell you what I thought, and I try not to be too spoilerific, but I do tell you a bit about each comic, and hopefully that'll give you a good idea if you wish to buy it or not. In the center portion, I have some interesting stuff to talk about. That's sort of my miscellaneous area. And so far, I've watched episode 1 of The Witcher, so I will be discussing that. And also, I have a comic book giveaway that I had running for the last week or so, and I am going to announce the winner of that in the center portion. And then we end off the show by talking about what comic books are coming up on next New Comic Book Day. So be excited for that. Excuse me. This is going to be a light New Comic Book Day week because next week is going to be minimal. They don't really ship out very much for around Christmas, so we're going to be, they almost skip a whole week because they send out to comic shops, they send out the shipments for the current week and the next week all in 1 week, so that way they can give their workers time off for the holidays. So the third half of this show will be kind of light, but anyway, let us get into comic books from this week. So number 1 for the week is Doomsday Clock number 12. Oh my goodness. It's been so long waiting for this damn book to get here. Oh goodness gracious. And for me, I got to really say it was worth the wait. This was quite an ending, and I really enjoyed what they did with it. I'm not going to spoil too much about it for you, but everything does get wrapped up. There is a little bit of ambiguity to it because there are a lot of pretty extreme things that happen. But basically, Dr. Manhattan has been tampering around with the DC universe, and Ozymandias has had some plan in place since his world got scorched. And, it's all leading to a head because Dr. Manhattan just cannot see past Superman this one moment when Superman comes to finish him off. How could even Superman finish off a god, you might ask? Well, you find out in this book that everything may not be as it seems, and it is a really interesting ending, and I do love what they do with it. Some people are asking in the end of all this is without spoilers, but is the Watchmen universe now combined with the DC universe? And what I will say without spoiling too much, when everything wraps up, there are characters from the Watchmen universe that have kind of crossed over and may become characters in the future, going on during the DC universe. Now, I'm not going to tell you which or how that plays out. There are new characters introduced in this comic book too. Definitely worth checking out for sure. And if you haven't been picking Doomsday Clock up thus far, here, let me show you a little of the art. I would definitely pick up the trade paperback of this, or if you can get your hands on the individual floppies. I always prefer to buy the floppies, but if I miss out on something and I regret it, I will just pick up the trade paperback sometimes. But this right here is the iconic sequence where Superman is just enraged. He's fighting all these villains, and he sees Dr. Manhattan, and he doesn't know what's going on, but he's going to potentially fly over and deal the killing blow or something. Dr. Manhattan has seen this vision coming, and he is anxious to see what happens beyond this point. So that is definitely recommend, and it is a strong start for these comics. All right. So we have the first comic of the week down. That is a high point. And from there, we will move on to another high point. That is XForce. All right, what can I say? Buy XForce. This series is so great. XForce has been wonderful so far. Let me see right here real quick. Benjamin Percy. Oh my goodness, Benjamin Percy. That this story has just been so amazing, and I've been loving every second of it. You got Domino and Wolverine and that other guy. I still don't know his name. I mean, I've read it a bunch of times, but he's not a character I've ever really connected with in the past. But he's like psionic or something like that. And you got them sort of teaming up to fight this new evil organization that has it out for mutants and are building Frankensteinian assassins and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And we've had Domino, and oh man, they have apparently fields that they can create that remove mutants' abilities. So they're really evening out the playing field now and going after the mutants hard in the paint right now. So this continues. Let me show you some of the art. This continues on with that story, and it leads somewhere pretty crazy. I wasn't expecting the ending. But yeah, they team up and they're going to try and stop the latest plot from this new organization. And, well, things may not go quite as planned. And without spoiling anything, it is crazy. I really want to say some stuff about this. Just go pick up the book, okay? Do yourself a favor. Go pick up this book because it is worth your time and effort. And you can see the craziness. Every issue of this delivers craziness. So definitely looking forward to the new Wolverine series. It's going to be the same writer. And oh, if it's as good as this, if it's half as good as this, it's going to be phenomenal. All right, so let's move on from there to the next comic book on my list. What will it be? The conclusion, Batman, Last Night on Earth. number 3 by Scott Snyder. Yes, this was a pretty crazy issue right here. There is quite a major twist in here, and it makes sense, but I didn't know that they were actually going to do that. But in going with the story, the big twist in here really does make sense. This issue is really good, and a little confusing, just like Scott Snyder likes to do it. So much big picture stuff that you kind of get lost in the mix every now and again. But it was enjoyable to read some Scott Snyder again. I like him on shorter series because how he writes is a big pill to swallow. So when it comes to Scott Snyder, I think miniseries are his strong point, in my opinion, just because so much to take in and analyze, and you got to go back and read it and really try to grasp for what he's going for. But here we go, Batman kicking the ass of some of the troopers from the new regime. And man, this series gets to a pretty dark point. I didn't know exactly how they were going to end it, but I am satisfied with the ending of this. It was a good series, and it was worth the wait. There was quite some delay on the third book for reasons, but if you have been reading this thus far, go ahead and pick this up. I definitely would recommend the last part. And if you haven't, if you're in the mood for Scott Snyder, then this is a good Scott Snyder run to pick up. It's brief enough to encapsulate everything that Scott Snyder loves to do, but it also, doesn't stretch out too long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Next up, we have Doom. Oh yeah, not Doom. It's this is 2099 Omega, but here we have Doom 2099 on the cover. I reviewed that last week. I got confused for like 2 seconds, but yeah, this is the comic book sort of wrapping up what was happening with the 2099 arc. And what can I say? I enjoyed the 2099 overall, but there wasn't really a main purpose to it. How to best summarize it is to say that they're sort of rebooting 2099. And like when I was reading through it the first time, I thought we were just going back and getting the origin stories of 2099, because some of the characters may not have had such a fleshed out origin, and they did at the same time they were introducing new characters to replace some of the old 2099 characters. So I wasn't sure what to make of exactly what was happening, but apparently this is just sort of a soft reboot of 2099, where some kind of something happened to the era, and it sort of reset a lot of things. A lot of the characters that had already existed were kicked out of their roles and forgotten that they had ever had them. And in particular, there is one character that survived the universe retcon and came over to, warn people about, hey, you've forgotten who you were. I was you. And so that's not too much of a spoiler. But, it was interesting, and it didn't really go anywhere other than to reboot the universe and bring back in characters and sort of have this narrative that life will find a way, because even though things are conspiring to negate superheroes, life still pushes in that direction to cause them to exist. So that was pretty interesting. The narrative was pretty cool. I wish they would have really gone somewhere with it, but I don't regret picking this up. Like, some of the stories are really enjoyable, and not for anything, but they did get rid of some of the characters that I never really liked and put more interesting characters in their place, or at least aesthetically more pleasing characters. So there's that. Let me show you a little bit of the art. We have Spider-Man 2099 here being a badass. This was always my favorite Spider-Man. We got the Watcher up there talking to Doom 2099 and talking about the, overarching story of what's happening. But it's definitely interesting, and it's a good cap for what they were trying to do, which is just kind of lightly rebooting the 2099s. All right, well, I hope that gave you a good idea of what was happening with that whole arc. I kind of wish they would do something a little more with it, because like it just wet my tongue with those characters being reintroduced. Next up we have, what is it gonna be? Wonder Woman Dead Earth #1. I really didn't know what to expect from this book. Okay, this had some like Matrix like pod stuff going on, and showing monsters in the background, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but I am intrigued. And I wasn't disappointed. I will definitely be picking up the next issue of this series. Let me show you some of the art. But what we have here is just a brief setup. Is the world is basically nuked. Wonder Woman may be the last superhero alive. Monsters and mutants are roaming all over the place. Humans are just trying to survive. This is the apocalypse, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see here, Batman is dead. He died in stately Wayne Manor. And what else? What else can you say? Where do you go from there? If you've seen the movie Doomsday, then you know how crazy that movie gets, with the world breaking into like Mad Max sex and medieval sex and all this kind of stuff. And this kind of plays with those kind of concepts, and Wonder Woman being a badass Amazon really meshes in quite well with everything that happens in this story. And I'm really intrigued. I really want to see what Daniel does with the rest of these books. uh yeah, it's just the art is pretty good in here. I wouldn't say out of all the Black Labels that this is like some of the best art, but it's definitely very fitting for the story, and I did enjoy it, and I would highly recommend this book. And I mean, it's the only problem I have is it's in that magazine format, so that makes it hard for me to have a place to store it. All right, so we are going on. We are going on. We are going on to the last book I picked up last week. The last one I want to talk about anyway. Here we go. Fallen Angels #4. Oh boy, like if you've been watching my live streams. Oh hey, greetings to the people that are in my chat. See a few people are watching, nobody's interacting, but I appreciate you being here. Um this series is such a pain in the ass. And how did I get up to issue #4 with a series that has been this much of a pain in the ass? Well, let me tell you a little bit about it. I love the writer, Brian Edward Hill. He is a great writer, and I feel terribly because he has been put with one of the most amateur artists I've ever seen put on a professional title. This is Marvel Comics. This isn't some free web comic you make in your free time, to appease to the 10 people who are going to read it. It is such a shame to see these concepts, and there are some really amazing concepts going on in this book, marred by such a terrible artist. Um, I don't even know who did it. I don't really even care who did it. All I know is I look at this book and it is laughably bad. It is laughably bad art. Let me go here, and it doesn't get any better. Let me look at this. Okay, so this is one of the best pictures from the whole book, because there's a small amount of real art in here. As you can see, the background looks really nice, and we got some of the grass and stuff like that. This is the best frame from the entire comic book. As you can see, there's no real details about anything. This book just doesn't have anything of substance to it, as far as the art is concerned. Just 3D models. That's all it is, being posed, and then a little bit of art every now and again, as small an amount as the quote unquote artist for this book could get away with. So that's the best picture. But now let me show you a little something else. This is more typically what the art looks like. These dead-eyed characters, because they're just 3D models with a filter over them. You know who that is in the background there? That is that is supposed to be X-23. What we have is somebody that looks like a long-haired One Punch Man, Saitama. There we go. We have a long-haired Saitama in the background there. And it is so bad. Now, as we can see here, there is no background, and that is about 80% of this book has no backgrounds. It's just black backgrounds or white backgrounds or blurs. But the artist is so untalented that they couldn't even be bothered to put anything in the background. Of about 80%, maybe even more, of this book has no backgrounds. They constantly reuse the same 3D rendered image again and again. That image I showed you a minute ago of the moon in the background, that's nice. On the next page, they use the same exact image again, slightly zoomed in, and they just readjusted Psylocke's 3D model to be facing in a different direction, but they didn't even readjust X-23's character at all. She's literally in the same pose. The clouds are in the same spot. The trees are all in the same spot. It's laughably bad. And wow, it's just such a shame. This was issue number 4, and this is about all I could stomach. This is sickening. This is a disgrace to comic books. And I'm not saying that because of Brian Edward Hill's writing. All the respect to you, Brian Edward Hill. I'm sorry that you got saddled with literally one of the most amateur artists to ever grace a comic book. Now, you can say what you want about Comicsgate, anti-Comicsgate, or any of the indie scene, whatever faction people belong to. Art this bad is exceptional, and it's well below anything that I've ever bought from any indie artist on Indiegogo. So let that sink in. This is a book that I would turn to and say every time anyone says anything about one of these independent comic books, no, this is what Marvel produced. This crap. Fallen Angels, especially issue 2, 3, and 4. Issue 1 was slightly better. Well, I'm sorry to end on such a dark note there, but man, that series pisses me off. I kept hoping that there was some bottom level to this artist, this terrible disgrace of an artist. I kept hoping that maybe there's some bottom of the well where they can't possibly get any worse. But every single issue, they seem to do that. So I'm canceling. I want to know what's going to happen in the story, but it is not worth having to suffer anymore of whoever this artist is in order to get through that story. It is laughable. So we're in the center portion now, and we'll be going on to recommendations for next week in just a moment. The center portion, I want to talk about The Witcher episode number 1. I'm so used to talking about comic books. Oh goodness gracious. I heard people were worried that this was going to be some kind of a show that was full of politics or something like that. And I can't speak for the whole show, but as of issue number 1, I can see some people maybe getting slightly worried about certain things. But it's good. It is good. Episode number 1 was awesome. And they did so much in such a small span of time. Henry Cavill did such a good job. And I did play the first 2 Witcher games just a little bit, though. I don't really know much about the lore and stuff like that. I know that they can't have, children and whatnot. And I know that they're monster hunters. But this was a very interesting series. And I don't know about the inconsistencies or anything like that, but I really enjoyed it. Me and my wife sat down and watched it. We both loved it. And we can only watch this show maybe 1 episode a night. That's all we have the time for with our daughter. But we're going to be watching this whole show for sure. It is awesome. So that has a good recommendation. Next up, we are talking about the winner for my latest comic book giveaway. My latest comic book giveaway is for Alien 3 hardback, and it's not based on the film that came out. It's actually based on the original script for Alien 3 with Hicks still being alive, Newt still being alive. You know, just a totally different path. Matter of fact, if you've read this comic book, Ripley is hardly in the story. She's alive, but she's hardly in the story. It's very male centric, but it's good, and I'm hoping to give it out to somebody. So I went through and I looked through all the people that retweeted my last post, because that was one of the things. Follow me, retweet, and like, and on that particular post, and I randomly flipped through, closed my eyes, pressed a name, and the one that came up was oh man, sorry, I'm having trouble thinking about it right now. Let me see. It was Sponge something. It was a play on SpongeBob. It's like Sponge something with a G. Oh, of course, right now I can't remember it. Of course, right now I'm having trouble. But okay, let me see. You know what? Wow, I ruined this whole segment. Well, if you got a sponge, and then it's a play on SpongeBob, it's Sponge something, and then a 100% at the end of your little tag there. You're the winner, and I'm sorry that I can't remember the second portion of your name, but congratulations. You will be receiving the book. I will message you eventually. I'll be posting about it later on Twitter to try and get your attention. My private messages, my DMs, whatever you want to call them, they're open to anyone that wants to send me a message. So if you happen to be watching this video, hit me up. I don't think I have many people named Sponge something and then 100 with the underlines under it that follow me. So if you're that person, let me know. Okay. Well, I've wasted enough time, and we are going to go into the final portion of the comic book hunt. Here we go. What recommendations do I have for next week? Well, there's not too many, just 2 issues, so pay close attention. Incoming number 1. This is a mini series from Marvel or some kind of an event or something like that. And yes, I am sick of events. Do not get me wrong here. I am looking forward to this, though. If you read the Marvel Comics 1000 and 1001, there is an underlying story about some kind of mask that has survived for like millennias and stuff like that, and eventually gets tied into a character. And that's where this all leads up to incoming. I believe it's going to be, this character was introduced. I don't remember exactly what he was called again. Something like the Raider or something like that. But he was introduced in I guess his first preview appearance was in Marvel Comics 1000, and then his first full appearance was in Marvel Comics 1001. And this series is going to be about him, and he's wearing this mask, and it's like mystery and being handed down through the generations, and people have been trying to figure out its powers and stuff like that. So I am definitely interested in seeing where they're going to go with this. I don't know how long this series is, but if it's any good, then I will definitely keep collecting it, and I'm interested in this new character. I want to see what they're going to do with him and what kind of powers exactly the mask has. Okay, so we move from there to The Kill Lock. This sounds like an interesting story about like some robots that are it's kind of hard to explain. It's like these robots are bad robots, and they form together to make almost like a Suicide Squad after being captured or something like that. Definitely going to be an interesting look. I don't know who's writing it or anything, but there are almost no comics coming out this next week, and so I'm grasping at straws with even just these 2. But The Kill Lock looks like it's going to be a good series. All right. Well, I do appreciate all of you coming in. Anyone who watches this now, who may be observing my live stream, or anyone who may be stopping in later and checking out, seeing what's up with comic books. I appreciate all of you. If you like this, if you made it this far, please subscribe, please like, please comment, get in on the conversation. Let me know what you think about all these titles. If you have any questions, just ask me. If you think I could do anything better, please tell me. I always want to improve my live streams and everything I do, because I am Team Comics, as you could see here. And I want to hold up to that standard of being anything and everything comics. As long as you love comics, you're Team Comics. So thank you all for being here, and I hope you all have a great day. Yes.